Hey everyone, welcome to another quick one. So before we start actually coding, classes and objects and stuff like that, I just want to quickly explain how do you actually use it in code in the first place. And then, moving forward, we're going to get into, actually writing these things, and I'm going to explain how do you actually put it to your code. And also, we're going to be using a library as well. So, to just do a quick recap, the way a class and object works is that a class, you can imagine it as a blueprint, right? And this is what I have for you. And again, if you think about it, it's pretty much a blueprint where you have the plan for, let's say in this case, a car, right? So that is your class. And what you can do is you can use this class to create an object, and this object is going to be your car, essentially your actual car, and whatever that car is going to be doing, whether it's going to move, it's going to stop, and all sorts of things. So that is going to be your object. So just if you want to imagine this, just kind of get a better understanding of it, a class is basically a plan, a blueprint, or like in library, right? An object is basically, what you're actually put into use, what you're creating from that class. And this is how you actually implement a class and object in the code. So the way this works is that you, first of all, name your object like any, other variable. In this case, for example, I called it car, right? And then it's going to be equal, obviously this is like, how you define something, and then you're going to pull the class. Now, if you pay attention, there are a couple of important things. First of all, is that if you take a look, the class name car blueprint is Pascal case. Now, in Python, obviously, this is something you don't have to do, but it's strongly recommended that you want to name your classes Pascal case, like when you actually create a class, which is something we're going to get into on as well. When you develop your own classes, you want to make sure that the way you call it is using Pascal case, because that's how you actually differentiate between like variables and global variables and stuff like that, right? So it's really, really important to remember, and if you remember with the functions, we define it by having the first letter, capitalized. So like, when we use Pascal case, we actually differentiate that, hey, this is a class. And in the editor, when we get to actually developing these things, you're gonna see that when you actually have a Pascal case, it automatically thinks that it is it's a class. So anyway, so this is how you call it. You name your object, whatever. Again, this object can be anything you want, all right? I can call this an airplane if I want to. It doesn't matter. And then you're gonna call the class, and then it's like a, open and close parentheses, like the way you actually call a function, right? So that's how you actually call a class and create an object from it. And then later on, you can actually use this object to call a lot of methods and, attributes inside this class. That's something we're going to get into as we are going to code in this section, which is going to start pretty much in next video. Now, what we're going to talk about again is the Turtle graphics library. Now, this is actually a class, if you can imagine it, a library of code essentially that is included inside Python. So with every install of Python that you have, you are going to have the Turtle graphics library. And the idea with this, which is really cool, is that it's going to allow us to actually create graphics. So far, everything that we've been actually creating so far has been in the console, right? So you click the run button, it just like shows some numbers and stuff like that there. But now we're actually graduating into graphics. Now, using the Turtle graphics library, we can actually create graphics. We can have a screen. We can have a screen showing something to us. Like, it's really, really cool. You can do a lot of interesting things with this. And it's a really good segue into understanding objects and classes, and generally understanding how you can use a predefined library. Because the idea with the class in, using classes and objects and object-oriented programming is that instead of just developing something from the scratch by yourself, you can actually pull a lot of libraries into your code, already developed libraries basically into your code, right? And you can actually use those in your code without having to write any of it. You basically just, it's ready for you to use, and you just start calling these. You create an object out of these classes, and you just start using it. And again, like this Turtle library is pretty much a good example of it, which is going to help us to understand this whole thing better. And then later on, we're going to get into developing our own classes, because right now what we're going to do is we're going to actually use a ready to use class, as I said, which is the turtle class library. And then later on, we're going to develop our own classes too. So we'll get to that later. But anyways, so let's get started. This is really, really exciting because we're getting to more advanced and also really interesting concepts of Python, which is going to really open a lot of possibilities on us. All right, so let's continue and let's go ahead and talk about this in our code editor.